and any other issues on the platform that you are currently joining us from. And we'll try to take as many of those questions as we can. With that, will you kick things off for us, Congresswoman?
Sure, Dave. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for joining my town hall. I hope the new year has been kind to you and your family so far. Unfortunately, for many of us, it's looking a lot like 2025. It's more chaos and cruelty from the White House, and Republicans still refuse to confront skyrocketing costs or rein in violent, chaotic ICE operations. And that's what we're going to focus on tonight with your questions. And to do it, I'm so fortunate to be joined by my special guest, Nancy Ann DeParle. Nancy Ann is going to help me tackle questions on healthcare and costs, and I'll let you hear from her in a second and give her a more proper introduction. So first, I want to just run through some quick updates. We just emerged from yet another government shutdown. Funding for about 80% of the federal government ran out on Saturday, but the House voted to reopen the government earlier today. Now, while I supported 5 of the 6 funding bills in the package, I voted no because I could not support resuming funding for the Department of Homeland Security without serious reforms and guardrails in place. In the final package that will go to the President's desk, though, I am really thrilled to tell you that I landed some really big wins for our community, and I'll share just a few of those. I helped secure $105 million for programs to stop internet crimes against children, including $500,000 to track down predators that will come right to our Broward County Sheriff's Office, who does a fantastic job going after internet child sexual predators. I secured $5 million for cancer, Alzheimer's, and other disease research at FIU, FAU, and Nova Southeastern universities. I secured millions more for Davie, Miramar, Pembroke Pines, and Fort Lauderdale to expand local roads, repair water systems, and train our first responders. Now, there are many more national and local wins, but in all of these spending bills, there's still one serious problem for all Democrats, and that is the Homeland Security budget, and quite frankly, many Republicans too. As many of you know, that budget included funding for ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. But please know this, be it the killings in Minneapolis or the daily acts of cruelty and lawlessness that ICE inflicts on communities, I'm fighting alongside my Democratic colleagues to end these abuses. And I've been leading the fight for accountability, oversight, and reform. Most Republicans just want to keep giving ICE a blank check. And by Republicans, I mean Republican members of Congress. And I cannot and will not do that. Masks need to come off, body cameras must be turned on, and judicial warrants should be required. No more ICE agents breaking into the homes of American citizens or lawful permanent residents or ripping people out of cars. No more rounding up and detaining American citizens just because they have brown skin. Our local law enforcement follows these basic rules, and they do a great job keeping us safe. ICE should do the same, just as it has under past administrations. We'll take more ICE questions tonight, but here's what you need to share with all of your friends. Republicans paid for all of these cruel ICE roundups by hijacking funds from health care and food for our families. They'd rather starve Medicaid and Medicare and slash nutrition assistance for seniors and kids just to dump tens of billions of taxpayer dollars more into ICE. Those are repulsive priorities. They are not Democratic values, and they are not the values of our district. Let me be clear, immigrants who committed crimes should be deported. And we need to hold this administration to that stated priority, which they have not followed, and they have run amok. But let's touch on health care, because so many of you are asking us about it, and rightly so. The Affordable Care Act is a critical lifeline. By the way, we have the most signups for Affordable Care Act policies, otherwise known as Obamacare, of any state in the country. Yet because of Republicans, millions of Americans are now losing their health care coverage, or they're paying sky-high prices just to keep it. When we combine the Affordable Care Act rollbacks with the Medicaid cuts in the big ugly law that Republicans passed last summer, 83,000 people in our district will lose coverage. Plus another 203,000 of our neighbors in my district face massive ACA price spikes. That is just appalling. And I've been hearing from so many people who have skyrocketing, eye-popping increases in their health care premiums as a result of Republicans refusing to extend the enhanced premium tax credits. In Congress, every single House Democrat joined a few Republicans to To pass an extension of the ACA credits, we forced this vote over the objections of Republican leaders. We did it to keep affordable coverage within reach for hundreds of thousands of friends, families, and neighbors in Florida's 25th Congressional District and millions of Americans nationwide. But Republicans in the Senate have still refused to take up that bill and pass it. We have to keep the heat on them, and I encourage you to call our Florida senators, Rick Scott and Ashley Moody, as soon as we wrap up here and share that demand. Again, Nancy Ann will dive into that a bit more momentarily, but I wanted to update you on one last thing before we take questions. The high cost of living is just out of control. Utility bills, home insurance, rent, coffee, hamburger, eggs, health insurance, our costs just keep climbing higher. I know when I go food shopping in the supermarket near me, I have to swallow hard when I get to the cash register because it's just so much more expensive to pay for the same groceries that just a couple of years ago were a lot less. There's no reason why we can't work on bringing those costs down. A year ago, remember, Trump promised, and I quote, to rapidly bring down costs. Republicans in Congress said lowering prices was their top priority. But we know now that they were not telling the truth. Republicans continue to focus on all the wrong things, attempting the takeover of Greenland, pushing anti-abortion legislation, declaring war on legal immigrants and our allies with Trump's reckless tariffs. And all it does is push up your prices and scare companies away from expanding or hiring new workers. And none of that lowers your rent or your electric bill or gets you in to see a doctor for any less money. But House Democrats are focused on making life better and more affordable for the American people. We want to expand low, clean energy options, not shut them down like Republicans are, so your utility bills can come down too. We'll block costly tariffs that drive up grocery prices and expand home construction and flooding mitigation to help hold mortgage and insurance prices in check. To tackle at home, I recently brought back millions in federal funds to our community to reinforce our flooding resiliency efforts. We also want child and elder care to be more affordable, so hardworking American taxpayers can breathe easier. But none of those things that Democrats fight for show up on the Republicans' congressional agenda this year.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We're doing a live commentary on Debbie Wasserman Schultz town hall on what she's claiming her priorities are is immigration, affordability, and health care. But as you just heard, everything she's pointing at is really doublespeak. Yes, affordability is the big issue here, and we want to tackle that. But everything she's saying, she's talking about increasing health care for illegal immigrants and also for people who refuse to work, able-bodied people who refuse to work. So we're back at the same issues at her town hall in December. There's nothing new here. She's talking about making things more affordable, but she just voted to shut down the government. This past week, actually, she voted to shut down partially the government, which includes DHS, FEMA, during this cold snap. And she just twisted words. She's talking about that Republicans are taking away health care from Americans, and that ICE is harassing American citizens, and that ICE is deporting illegal immigrants. That's just not the case. That's really just political rhetoric. What's going on here is we can see that ICE is something that, there's policies in place. And while Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been in Congress for 20 years, the immigration policies, the law that exists today, is based on her voting for the last 20 years. She helped create those laws, those immigration laws that we have today, were created by Debbie. So she's now not taking responsibility for the laws that Congress had previously voted for. The issue is not that people don't want ICE to do their job. They overwhelmingly do. The whole mass majority of the U.S. want ICE to do their job and have legal immigration and go after criminals and basically stop the open borders that Biden had. So, we're talking about really the same issues, but doublespeak from the politicians yet once again. And all this also leads to affordability because she wants illegal immigrants and able-bodied people who refuse to work to be kept on Medicaid, but that's driving up the cost of health care. I mean, that's all related to the affordability issue. And, one last thing I'd just like to add to that, I think we all know that, she's, Debbie Wasserman Schultz is very unliked in this district. We recently did an independent poll, and her favorability is down to 38%, very, very low. So I think the writing's on the wall. People are sick and tired of the political talk, and they want real action. They don't want people saying one thing but really meaning another. We want affordability. We want quality and good health care. We want to help people that aren't able to help themselves. But that's not what Debbie's talking about. Debbie's talking about financing foreigners, financing big interest, subsidizing big pharma, subsidizing big insurance, while bleeding American workers. And that's just not going to stand anymore.
Be denied. Women in some states, thankfully not Florida, but some states could be charged as much as 27 times men. Age rating was rampant. So we set out to fix all those things, and the Affordable Care Act did that. And we brought down the rate of healthcare cost growth. It was, for the decade following the Affordable Care Act, it was rising at 1.7% a year, whereas it had been 4% a year for decades and decades before that. So we clearly did a lot of the right things. We got 40 million Americans covered, as you said, many in Florida, despite the fact that Florida is one of 10 states that has refused to expand Medicaid to cover the neediest people. So, you know, we did a lot right, but as President Obama said, and as I'm sure you agree, it was a starter home. There were other things we would have liked to do. We couldn't do them. Well, guess what? I hope you're going to have an opportunity to do that soon. And unfortunately, you're going to have to it'd be nice if other people would get a broom and help us, but there's going to be a lot to clean up at that point. You're going to have a lot that you're going to have to do. But again, I was very proud to work with President Obama on this. It was an important step forward for our country, and no one worked harder than you to make sure that the law is as strong as it could be for the people that you represent.
Thank you so much, Nancy Ann. One thing I can absolutely underscore is that the Affordable Care Act was really monumental legislation that helped make sure that
it
more
did
than
not.
20 million...
Healthcare became unaffordable long before the last government shutdown that she voted for. These subsidies are draining people dry. We have unaffordable healthcare because of the ACA plan, because of Obamacare that she voted for. We have terrible, terrible quality insurance. You know, I was recently at the hospital, and they told me if I had paid cash, I'd get a 70% discount. So what they're telling us is that if we use insurance, we're paying over 300% of what the actual cost is. We're subsidizing big pharma and big insurance. This is not for the people. We need to really break this down and start over again and actually create a plan that helps people. Yes, help people that can't help themselves. Like I said, we all want that. But this bureaucracy of just bleeding the American workers dry, that's why we're in this affordability crisis.
So, okay, well, I think we're ready to field some questions and look forward to hearing what you guys have on your mind.
Great. Thanks, guys. You did a really good job to sort of frame our discussion for tonight. I appreciate that.
And before I jump into this first question, I just want to remind everybody here listening to our live stream, please. Yes, go ahead and ask any of your questions too. We're watching it, so happy to answer any questions in real time. So please engage with us.
But I'd like to kick us off with a question from Brunilda. She's in Fort Lauderdale, and she told us that she has family members who have opted not to renew their medical insurance due to cost. What can be done to help restore those people's health care through the ACA? And I'll go to you first, Nancy Ann, on this one. What's your take on that?
Well, I agree with the Congresswoman. Call your senators. She's already doing everything she can do, but call your two senators and tell them to get on board and work towards extending these enhanced premium tax credits.
They knew that the system was a failure, but they did it anyway.
We knew.
They just admitted it. They knew it wasn't going to work.
Enhanced premium tax
they
credits
set us up for failure from the very beginning.
I think the number of people covered in the marketplace
the system only works when you have more people paying in than people taking out. The problem is we're going through an economic crisis. If we keep subsidizing where everybody can abuse the system, we're in socialism. Everybody loses. This is exactly the policies of Nicolas Maduro. This is socialism, government-controlled healthcare. And this is what we need to get away from. We need to have our own healthcare that works for us, quality healthcare that's affordable.
They have to do is extend it, and it would be very easy to do. It doesn't even cost that much relative to how much they just spent on the tax breaks they did in their bill this year. So that's what needs to happen.
I couldn't agree with you more, Nancy Ann. And you know what's devastating is we spent the whole last year warning the Republicans about what was going to happen if they pushed Americans off this cliff of making sure that we could keep those folks who are in a vulnerable position, who, these are not like millionaires that get these enhanced tax credits. These are people who are, living below middle class and who really struggle already with the lack of affordability. So since January, unfortunately, all the dire predictions have come true. It's about 1.3 million people in the country who have dropped their Affordable Care Act policies altogether. I think about 200,000 of those are in Florida alone. Again, because we have...
Yeah, I'll also just add that South Florida, where Debbie Wasserman Schultz has been representing for 20 years, is the biggest amount of fraud of ACA healthcare fraud in the country. It's because when you subsidize the big insurance, when you subsidize big pharma, and you don't have any audit controls, it gets abused. We have billions of abuse right here in her district.
They cut Medicaid. They cut SNAP, the nutrition assistance, hundreds of millions of dollars in cuts. And so now people are struggling to be able to afford nutritious food, to be able to feed their families. Folks on Medicaid who are even in a more financial difficulty, a more challenging financial situation, are going to lose their Medicaid. And then you add on top of that folks who have eye-popping increases in their health insurance.
I have a question here from Billy Russell. He asks, talking about insurance, LOL, that's engineered by the system. They made it mandatory for everyone to carry health care and drive up the rates. That's a corporate move. What are they extorting people for profit? Why do we support that? That goes into exactly what I was just talking about, that the Democrats and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, they're pushing this agenda to subsidize big pharma and big insurance. And, I've talked about this before. This is basic economics. When you drive artificial demand, guaranteed profits for the insurance companies and for the healthcare companies, they don't have to compete. They have guaranteed success. So that drives up prices automatically. That's what makes it unaffordable. When you create artificial demand, you're artificially raising the prices for everybody, and it makes it unaffordable for everybody. So just like I said, the system is rigged against us. This is not set up for success. This is set up for failure, which they just plainly admitted that this was not something that they planned to do long term without changing it. It now needs time to be changed, but an amendment is not going to fix it. We need a brand new healthcare plan that's not Obamacare, it's not ACA. We need something that actually works for the working class people and not bleeding them dry.
And the Senate hasn't done it. So the Senate needs to hear from much that's going to hurt people and said, yes, we need to do this. And the Senate hasn't done it. So the Senate needs to hear from your constituents and others.
Absolutely. And Brunilda, just a more direct answer to your question about what you can do. In the meantime, you can reach out to the Broward Community and Family Health Center. We have community health centers, in our community in South Florida, and you can get low cost or no cost. They do it on a sliding scale, access to health care, and there's also preventative care that you can get access there. So if you call my office tomorrow, we can give you the contact information for the Broward Community and Family Health Center. BCOM is a fantastic facility, and we're happy to try to help you with some options to get some access to care. But it's a really tough situation.
And that cost crunch that you guys just walked through is on the mind of our next question. They're asking, could you please say a little bit about the cuts that have been made to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP as most folks call it, through the Budget Reconciliation Law, and discuss how it's not only impacting persons who need an assistance, but it's going to severely impact states that will be forced to contribute as much as $35 billion to have this program available for people in need. So can you just talk a little bit about SNAP issues?
Nancy Ann, do you want to take that at all, or?
I'll let you take that.
Okay, no problem. So what happened is that in the big ugly law, the reconciliation bill, as Dave referenced, the questioner was asking, Republicans cut hundreds of millions of dollars in SNAP, the nutrition assistance program that provides folks with affordable access to food, nutritious food. And what they did was they focused their entire set of priorities in these cuts on saying repeatedly a complete lie, and that is that SNAP benefits, nutrition assistance benefits, were
we
going
absolutely know there's
to
fraud.
illegal aliens.
I mean, everybody
Those
sees
are
that
words.
now. It's all wide open. It's all in the audits.
System, and that there's a whole lot of people that needed to get kicked off of SNAP because undocumented immigrants who were accessing this benefit, and it was being deprived of people who are American
They're
citizens.
actually using SNAP, buying different goods and products, and then selling those products overseas. And that whole audit came about too. So a lot of that SNAP money is being used for reselling food and other essentials to foreign countries. And that came out in the audits. I mean, there's so much fraud going on. I mean, I think Bassett just recently did the research and said upwards of 10% of our federal budget is fraud. That's $600 billion a year in fraud. And SNAP is a big part of that.
Benefits and get Medicaid.
So, I mean, the way we get the affordability down is we root out the fraud and actually help people that need to be helped. And there's plenty of resources, plenty of money to go around. We can actually save money and still help the people that need it if we just get rid of this fraud.
Heads above water and to stay afloat. They're not programs that are designed to just pay people to stay at home and be lazy and do nothing. I mean, it's preposterous, and every credible source that analyzed the Republicans' big ugly law last summer specifically documented that these are not programs that go to
it's a very
vast
vague
amounts of.
concept. I mean, she didn't really give a number, but we know the number is quite high. I mean, some of the numbers were in the double digits, some 20, 30% digits are higher. I mean, there's so much fraud there. And there's a lot of the fraud that was going on in Minnesota. People were on these benefits for over 10 years. So this is not meant to be long-term sustainable living. This is meant to help people in need during their time of need. It's not a living subsistence forever.
Emergency room to get their basic access to health care when they are so sick that they have no other choice but to go to the emergency room where they have to be treated, but then they can't pay because they no longer have health care coverage, either Medicaid or the Affordable Care Act, and that cost gets shifted to all of us, and it drives health care costs up for everyone. So this was a grossly irresponsible bill, one based in lies. Again, because the demonization of immigrants by Republicans in this country is simply outrageous.
Nancy, I have a question for you because this came up a lot with the questions that we received today. And I think that there is this perception that this is really just going to hammer folks who are lower income. But you alluded to just a little bit ago that this impacts everybody, and that people, even who have relatively decent, let's say, company insurance, are likely to see their costs have gone up this year. And can you just sort of explain the dynamic that we're not just talking about, sort of the most struggling working class folks that are being impacted by these cost hikes? It's just about everybody, right?
It affects everybody because that's the way insurance markets work. We're all in this together. So if you assume that people are dropping their insurance, then guess what? The people who are left have to pay more because the actuaries...
It's not that complicated. They're just trying to create some magical big mystery that we can't understand this. And it's basic math. Listen, we need upfront pricing. We need transparency and upfront pricing to create more competition. Like I said, I was recently at the hospital, and they gave a battery of services. I have no idea half the things they did or why they did it. And when I asked them how much it was going to be, they just chuckled and said a lot. And I have no idea what the bill's going to be. It could be $2,000, it could be $20,000, because the medical industry doesn't give any upfront pricing. Years ago, I think it was back in the 80s, we had mechanics, car shops. They had a lot of fraud going on. People were charging for this and that, and they passed laws where they gave, for this service it takes half hour, or this service takes an hour. So you knew up front exactly what the cost would be for your car serviced. This same thing needs to be applied to the medical industry. If we understood what we're going to pay for in advance, we could shop around for the best price. We could save money, create more competition. If we're not stop subsidizing big industry, big pharma, big insurance, let people choose where they're spending the money, it creates so much more efficiency in the private markets and a better healthcare system.
I'm going to switch that you're watching from. We'll try to get to those, and if you have a comment too, we'd be happy to share some of those. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. I got to tell you that almost half the questions that we got tonight look like they're on the ICE subject. I think that people are just watching on their social media and on TV and just horrified by what they see. I'm going to share this question from David in Pembroke Pines. He was just curious, is in your congressional district, Congresswoman, are you actually seeing any ICE activity, and how does it maybe stack up with maybe some of the activity around the country?
Yeah, thanks. I totally understand why so many questions tonight would be focused on ICE's activity and the abusive practices that they're engaged in. I'll tell you, a few weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago now, in Davie, just right near my house in West Davie, I live in Weston, there was ICE enforcement going on where along Weston Road, they were, and I heard they were doing this in Cooper City as well, ICE was randomly stopping lawn care trucks and pulling staff from those trucks out of their vehicles, asking for their identification, taking people away in handcuffs. This isn't enforcement related to people who are.
That's ridiculous.
Hardened criminals.
I mean, we live in South Florida. Half the population is Hispanic. So, she's just playing the race card here. Listen, at the end of the day, everybody voted to have a mandate to get a control of our illegal immigration that was happening. She's been a big part of the ICE policy that exists today. We need ICE to do their job. We need to support the law enforcement. But obviously, we need to go after the worst of the worst. We need to have some dignity and some humanity in how we're doing it. You don't attack ICE for doing that. You don't shut down the government because you don't like the way things are done. You lobby. We take the information we received. We adapt, and we create new policy. It's not something that needs to be one side attacks the other side. We need to unify, get behind a policy that actually addresses the legal immigration and does it in a way that we have dignity in our country.
We're filming that activity, and reports all over various neighborhood chats that specifically said that folks had seen this activity. But Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has had 25,000 plus immigration arrests in our state over the last year. He jammed through a law that requires all state, county, and local police to support ICE operations.
Listen, this is the same congresswoman that wanted open borders. This is the same congresswoman that charged for the defund the police. So she just wants chaos. She wants unsafe neighborhoods. Going after our law enforcement, shutting down our law enforcement has never been good. That's not the way to go about doing this.
This is, to make matters worse, what DeSantis has done has cost Florida taxpayers on immigration.
See, and that number is also skewed because it might cost that much money to perform those immigration services, but what the return is, you're saving that money on basically services that taxpayers pay for, such as health care. You're also making way for jobs for Americans that are trying to get jobs here. There's a net benefit to removing illegal immigration out of this country. There's nothing wrong. The whole country voted for that.
To immigrant drivers, or just straight up profiling drivers who look Hispanic and then following them home or calling in ICE to arrest them. Not to mention the massive, inhumane ICE detention facilities in our area, including Chrome, which I did an unannounced visit to and was able to spend about 3.5 hours in that facility. Some of you might have seen the news report after I came out of there. The conditions in Chrome were appalling. You wouldn't send...
It's the same political scare tactics. I listened to Debbie's opening statement, and there's pretty much nothing I agreed with her on, except for she mentioned child care and elderly care. We need to get behind that and support that more, and that's something I actually agree with wholeheartedly. We need more help with child care. People are trying to work and need help taking care of their kids, and elderly care, especially in fixed income. But besides that, everything she's talking about is pure socialism, and she's really has Americans, last, not America first, in all of her policies.
Phenome from deporting and having revoked those TPS designations because Neither of those countries are as she says they are. To suggest that Haiti and Venezuela are safe enough to send...
Now, this is, the fight to keep illegal immigrants in this country and shut down ICE. This is about Democrats importing a new voter demographic because they're losing so much control. They're being voted out. They have the lowest approval ratings in years. Debbie herself has approval rating of only 38% in her own district. There's more to it than that. This is about them holding on and catering to a new voter demographic. And, if that's why, they're fighting to keep illegal immigrants in this country, while at the same time refusing to vote to pass the SAVE Act to actually promote voter IDs in this country. So this is all about voter fraud. It's the Democrat voter fraud machine at its best.
Administration from revoking TPS. If those get lifted and those folks have to face deportation, we're going to possibly see large-scale ICE operations in South Florida because we are one of the largest communities in the country in terms of the population of Venezuelans and Haitians. And I am going to fight to stop this and help protect our lawful immigrants, what TPS holders are, because they came here and did it the right way. And I'm
going to speak to that for a minute with TPS. TPS was not done the right way, and everybody knows that. And, a lot of people came here because they were fleeing tyranny, they were fleeing persecution, they were fleeing horrors in their countries. But TPS was something the Biden administration did with Kamala Harris as the border czar, where they waived all the vetting requirements. And I've actually met people here in South Florida that came here and they're on TPS status, and they told me how it works. They literally pay coyotes, they cross the border. The moment they stepped foot on U.S. soil, they call the police. They get carted off to Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities gave them food, shower, clothes, and then a week later, they received welfare and a voter registration card. And that's a very typical story. And so when she says that people came here the correct, lawful way on TPS, that's a lie. TPS was illegal. TPS was, I feel like, a lot of these people that came here on TPS, they were hoodwinked by the Democrats and the Biden administration because they came here without any vetting, and it was voter fraud initiatives. And those immigrants are really the victims here because of bad policies of people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Right now that we know have not enrolled this year, who were enrolled last year, is just the tip of the iceberg, because we think there are people like you who are just now getting these premium notices in the mail that say your premiums are going up, doubling, it sounds like tripling in your case, and you simply can't afford it. It's the size of a mortgage payment for many families. So I'm just heartbroken to hear this news for you. I will say this, the Congresswoman was talking about the governors spending $500 million on ICE enforcement, or state adjunct to ICE enforcement. Some states, not Florida, but some states have stepped up and are providing additional subsidies. California actually did this before the enhanced premium tax credits were first enacted nationally. They stepped up and gave more assistance to their citizens from their tax dollars. You pay taxes, we all do. So why can't some of it be used for that? So I prefer to use it for that than for
this is all backwards talk. I mean, listen, my wife's family came here legally as an immigrant. My family is a family of immigrants. I understand the plight, the hardships, and why people come here. We have the American dream here. We have so much here. But for Nancy and Debbie just to sit here and talk about that, why don't the American taxpayers pony up more money and pay for illegal immigrants? I don't know any Americans that want to do that. Now, if you want to take your own private money and you want to help family members, or if you want to send money overseas, that's your right. But American taxpayers should never have to pay for foreigners. That makes zero sense.
But would still give you the coverage you need to cover your cancer care and your family. I'm so sorry that it's left you with that predicament. And then you just have to help the Congresswoman and her colleagues keep fighting and get this changed. They could change it today if they wanted to. It would be easy to change. All the state insurance commissioners have said the minute we get notice that we get the additional money, we can get out new premium notices. So it could happen really quickly. We've got to keep fighting.
Absolutely. Federline, feel free to call my office tomorrow, and we can try to connect you with an ACA navigator. There are organizations that work with families and individuals to help you shop on the marketplace to see if there are various adjustments you can make to your coverage to try to bring the cost down. I know sometimes folks will put one person on, one family member's work policy, if that's an option, or, move the kids off the care, the coverage. So there's various ways of making adjustments like that. But the other real problem, Nancy Ann, is that unfortunately Florida is still, even though we are the third largest state in the country and we are the state with the most signups, we have never
Debbie
expanded
wants
Medicaid.
government-controlled health care. Ask the Venezuelans how that worked.
So
you gave up billions of dollars
that
could have been helping people.
Yeah, you leave almost 1 million people uninsured that could be insured with subsidies. And, Federline, I'm not sure if that's something you would normally qualify for had we expanded Medicaid. But there are almost 1 million people in our state where if you lived in a different state that expanded Medicaid, you would be able to get Affordable Care Act coverage that is affordable. And so, it's just infuriating that they aren't extending the enhanced premium tax credits, that we have not expanded Medicaid here, that we are dealing with Medicaid cuts that are not just discriminatory, but completely callous and demonstrates the indifference that Republicans have for helping to make sure that people can have access to basic health care. I remember growing up all the way through my whole life, my parents always taught me, Debbie, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And having faced breast cancer, one day I was the picture of health. When I was 41 years old, just after my first mammogram, I found a lump in the shower, and the next day I was a cancer patient. And, thank God, I remember thinking at the time, Nancy Ann, this was right as we were starting to debate the Affordable Care Act. And I
don't know why she seems saying that. She has the best health care as a member of Congress. She doesn't pay anything for health care. She doesn't understand the difficulties everybody else is going through.
But I have
she even had health care during the government shutdown. She had best of everything.
Breast cancer, more likely to have a recurrence, more likely to get ovarian cancer. Those are all things that if I didn't have health insurance, I would never have really been able to find out. And
or if we hadn't passed the law. Because it's a pre-existing condition.
Exactly. So the Senate needs to stop twiddling their damn thumbs and pass the 3-year extension of the ACA tax credits immediately. They could do it this week, and they need to stop putting people in a situation where they have to choose between health care and all their other household costs.
Well, what I've heard, I don't know if this is correct, but what I've heard is that in the Senate, the big holdup is, first, they don't really feel any urgency, which I don't get. But secondly, something about abortion, which again is, there is no coverage of abortion. That was an issue. Some of our colleagues wish that it could have been in there, but it isn't. It is not covered.
That's right.
So what else can we do here?
During the debate on the Affordable Care Act, that was the last holdup. When we debated that bill, the last holdup was from members on both sides of the aisle that wanted to make sure that Affordable Care Act policies did not cover abortion. There was language put in the bill that was negotiated to ensure that that was not the case. But Republicans now, for something that is completely not related to Affordable Care Act coverage, want to expressly insert abortion language for something that doesn't actually occur. It's preposterous, and it's just another.
And yet we have people like Federline who has been facing cancer and is now getting her premiums tripled. It's just
exactly.
I think Debbie's going to face some consequences later this year.
Friends, and so, I urge folks to make sure they get out and vote in this November, because we're seeing in real time happens when.
Listen, Debbie can complain all she wants and attack Republicans, attack Trump, but she's been in Congress for over 20 years. We're here because of the policies that she's voted on. We have the unaffordability issue because of Debbie. We have bad health plans because of Debbie. We have safety issues because of Debbie. If she did a good job in Congress, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Platform. This is Just a Fly Girl. You guys all know Just a Fly Girl, right? She says that. See, she's saying. She's saying that citizens are being shot down in the streets. People, including citizens, are being locked up without due process. This is not normal. And I think that flows in well to what Michael asked us, and Michael's in Sunrise. His question is, given the ICE recent activity with ICE and enforcement actions, what protections are in place to ensure the safety and rights of families and children, especially those who might be impacted, even if they are U.S. citizens?
Those are questions that we're fielding in our office and when I'm out in the community all the time.
What a surprise. She wants open borders and defund the police, just once again. Listen, Debbie cares more about illegal immigrants than our veterans here. Debbie sits on the subcommittees for our military spending, and she does nothing for our vets, but she uses that information to be one of the best stock traders. She's better than Warren Buffett on record. So when she talks about compassion and having an understanding of what people are going through, she's taken advantage. She is a typical career politician that exploits her position to better and fulfill her own pocket while bleeding the working Americans and forgetting the people that actually matter. Her constituents are not the people of the 25th District. Her constituents are illegal immigrants and big industry. And like I said, I'm all for immigration. My family are immigrants. They came here. They did so legally. My wife fled communist tyranny in Cuba. I get it. But what she's talking about is just total chaos. It's socialism. There's no rule of law. It's absolute chaos. And that's why our nation is in trouble today, is because of these policies that she's been pushing.
Have more money than they know what to do with, and they are just absolutely unchecked, and that's unacceptable. Since the killings of U.S. citizens in Minnesota, we have some Republicans in Congress who have reached their limit as well, and here's why. Republican voters don't like what they're seeing either. No one wants masked agents shooting first and asking questions later. Everyone wants secure
Yeah, of course nobody wants that, but that's not what we're talking about. We all want safety and security for Americans. We want legal immigration. We need to enforce our laws on illegal immigration.
We have to conduct rigorous oversight. We have to push for accountability. I'm going to use my role on the Appropriations Committee to put real constraints on ICE.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to focus on criminals when you defund the police?
Focus on criminals. That is absolutely essential. I'm for focusing on criminal immigrants who need to be found and kicked out of the country. We're going to fight in the courts to protect U.S. citizens and lawful immigrants' rights. We're going to promote a better vision for our immigration system. By the way, we need comprehensive immigration reform. That is something that Democrats and Republicans can come together and really make a difference on. I mean, I want to see the president step up to the plate. He could use his leverage with my colleagues and really leave a lasting legacy. But he just, he's focused on the wrong priorities. We need to let our local law enforcement put real criminals away and stop distracting them and stopping lawn trucks and stopping folks on the highway, hunting down, immigrants they decide don't belong here, even if they haven't committed a crime. And we need to let law-abiding, hard-working immigrants earn permanent status. That is what we need to be doing, and that's what I'm going to continue to fight for.
Thanks, Congresswoman. I've got a question that came in here off of one of the platforms. This is about a small business issue. As a small business, one of the few sources to get funding is SBA. But for the last 6 months, it is virtually impossible to resolve any issue with them. Is there any way our representative can help?
Yes. If you're having a problem with any federal agency, whether it's the Small Business Administration or VA or Social Security, DOD, DHS, you can call my district office. I have dedicated full-time staffers who can help you navigate any problem you have with the federal agency. We've gotten millions of dollars back for folks over the years. So my district office number is 954-845-1179. You can go on my website if you don't have a pen, and that's wassermanschultz.house.gov. Any casework help, you can reach out to us, but just call the office, and we're happy to help you. I have heard about the programs that the SBA has suspended and terminated unlawfully, and we're fighting against those because, well, look, what's happening here is you have an administration that is ignoring the funding that is law that Congress has appropriated and that have been signed into law by either this president or the previous president. And we've beat most of those cuts back, but the backlog concern here with the SBA losing a lot of staff because of the Trump layoffs and firings and hiring freezes. So my team can definitely help you sort of navigate all of that, and so just feel free to give us a call.
Great, thanks, Congresswoman. I'm going to shift back over to sort of healthcare. We've got a question coming in from Lynn. She's in Plantation. She just wants to know generally what is happening with Social Security and Medicare. And I know you both know a lot about these subjects. Nancy Ann, do you want to start us off? Is there anything that you can give us updates on either Social Security or Medicare?
Well, not Social Security. I suspect the Congresswoman would have an update there. With respect to Medicare, there are some concerning things happening just this past week, where the administration put out a rulemaking about Medicare Advantage, basically talking about the rate increases for next year, and it is basically not an increase, which will lead the plans, unfortunately, the Medicare Advantage plans, if you happen to be in a Medicare Advantage plan, which many people in Florida are, because there are a lot of offerings down there. If it goes into effect in April, it will have the effect of cutting back on benefits. It might have some plans decide to leave the market. And again, it could cause premiums to be raised in Medicare. I'm hoping it won't happen. There's a comment period where people like you can let the administration know, Dr. Oz and the people at CMS know what you think of it. But I think on top of everything else they've done, which we've been talking about, I was honestly shocked that they would put this out because there's no question that healthcare costs have been increasing, and they've been increasing for hospitals too. The cost of labor have gone up. And so to signal to the plans, well, we're going to actually reduce what you're getting, and it's being done under the guise of fraud and abuse. But when you actually look at it, there's some coding changes that they want to make, that they think that coding is unfair. But this isn't the year to do it. You exercise some discretion in these things. And this is an area where they have discretion to say, we'll phase this in. We want to make some changes. We'll phase it in. But instead, they announced basically a 0% increase, which, again, this is just not the time to be doing that. I don't want to scare anyone because we don't know anything yet, but it bears watching. Again, you're as a citizen, I'm so proud of all of you for being in this town hall and showing up to learn more about what's going on. And so I feel like I need to tell you that happened just in the last week, and it's very concerning.
Yeah, for them to say this is the wrong year to do that, I mean, this is the time that we're not going to delay things. We need to get it done now. We have an affordability issue. We need to get it done now. We can't push to next year or next presidency or next term. It's either now or never. If we don't fix something, we're going to continue bleeding ourselves dry. We're going to continue the fraud, the waste, abuse. We're going to continue the inefficiencies. I mean, we don't have to put off having a prosperous life. We don't have to put off getting good services. We can fix things right now. And this back and forth and this vague explanations and this political rhetoric, there's no real action. It's just complaining and focusing on illegal immigrants, that they need to get the insurance, that they need to stay here. There's not one position that either Nancy or Debbie are talking about, actually helping the people of this district, 25th district of Florida, anybody in the United States. What about the Americans that need affordable health care? What about Americans that need good paying jobs? What about the veterans that need help at the VA and they need help acclimating back after duty? There's nothing here in this whole town hall that's focused on the American people and how to improve their life. This is all focused on illegal immigrants. That's because that's their goal. That's what their focus is, because that's their new voting bloc. Without the illegal immigrants, the Democrats are not going to win an election. And that's what this is all about. And you have people that are actually trying to fix the affordability. You're trying to fix the immigration problem. But the pushback, they're not even voting. They're voting down the SAVE Act because they don't want anybody that's not going to vote their way. They're not going to allow it where we block illegal immigrants from having the ability to vote in American elections. And that's what this is about.
And, they abandoned the cuts because they got caught red-handed. And I'm proud to have been a large part of very publicly pushing back against that proposal. But, he cut over $500 billion from Medicare, my friends. There is something called a sequester.
Everything she's complaining about is exactly the mandate that people voted for in 2024. We need to cut away that fraud, that waste abuse, that big government, the high taxes. That's what we want. We need to get rid of this bloat and have real focus on giving the money back to the people, put money back in your pocket so you can decide how to spend your own money. And nobody's saying that we don't want to help the people that are in need. What we're saying is we're not going to help non-Americans. We're not going to help illegals that are here, that are supposed to be here. We're not going to help foreign interest. We're going to help Americans. Americans have afford homes again. Americans to be able to have good jobs. Americans to have a quality of life and be safe. And her whole message tonight is the exact opposite. So it's no wonder that she has some of the lowest approval ratings in the history of her career, because people are fed up. She is out of touch with the values of the people of this district and all of Florida.
They are in the process.
And IRS,
yeah. The IRS, they're in the process of closing field offices.
This is all about common sense. Like, say it's about putting Americans first. And this is really the out of touch elite Washington D.C. Democrat power bloc. It really has nothing to do with the average American, the Republican voter, the Democrat voter, the independent, non-political party-affiliated voter. This is about the out-of-touch elites. The Democratic Party has gone way off board, and they're not representing American values anymore. And that's the issue. The Democratic Party is very different than what people used to be, decades ago, and they've gone off course. They're really out of touch. They've lost complete common sense with the average voter across all parties. And we need to restore common sense. We need to restore what's good for Americans. We need every policy, every initiative, every law that's passed, we need to say, is this going to help Americans? Yes or no? If there's a net positive, let's look at it. If there's a net negative, absolutely don't do it. If this is favoring foreign interests, if it's favoring big industry, it's favoring illegal over Americans, then we can't allow it. We have to get rid of all of that and focus on Americans first and improve the quality of life, the safety, the affordability, the prosperity of Americans in America. This is the mantra. This is the mandate that people voted for. We need to continue, and we can't let up. We need to push forward harder to restore common sense.
Being approached by ICE in a harsh way.
So if you're a U.S. citizen and you encounter ICE, the most important thing is to show proof of citizenship. I mean, if you're a citizen, and unfortunately right now there's a lot of people who feel like they need to carry their passports with them. I wish I could tell you that that's not necessary.
This is what she's doing. She's actually coaching illegal immigrants how to game the system. That's what she's focused on, illegal immigrants. Listen, I'm not a politician. I'm a first-time candidate. I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I spent all my life solving problems, building value, creating jobs, creating opportunity. And, when you see a career politician and they've been in office that long, man, I don't want to be in office that long. you can just, what she's doing right now is she's lying. And, what she's doing right now is really, she's smiling to our faces, but really what she's talking about is focusing on illegal immigrants and bleeding American workers dry. And she's doing everything that is against American values. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, or Independent, this is not the American way. We need to focus on common sense and focusing on restoring our freedoms, restoring our economic opportunity. I mean, and we're not going to do that with career politicians that are simply out of touch. We need the innovation of people that actually know how to solve problems, that believe in America, that want to do good. And that's why I'm running to not be a career politician, but take the experience I've learned as an entrepreneur and do my time to actually help people and help them all the ways I was just talking about, help improve their lives, bring back our freedoms that we've been losing, whether it's censorship, our freedom of economic opportunity, freedom of our own safety. These are the things that have been slipping away because of out-of-touch elite politician bureaucrats. And, I don't think we get any worse of an elite politician bureaucrat than Debbie Wasserman Schultz after what she's done with the Iran nuclear deal. We're in our mess with Iran today because of her signing the Iran nuclear deal. And she's putting the U.S. at risk. She's putting Israel at risk, signing that Iran nuclear deal. I don't know why she would ever do something like that. And now her insider trading, she has no respect for the American people.
Two questions here, and then I want us to sort of wrap up. We're actually bumping into time, but I think we can go over a little bit, and apologies in advance, Nancy Ann. This one might be good for you, Nancy Ann. There is a question from Ralph in Hollywood who wants to know what's planned for Medicare to address long-term care needs. Do you want to maybe tell us what you might know about that?
Well, unfortunately, I wish I had good news for you here. I mean, I think the most important thing is that right now, the president has said he won't touch Medicare. And the congresswoman told us he tried to, and she fought, and with all of you fought back. And so she's kept him from doing that so far. But what they did do recently was roll back a law, a regulation that had been put forward by the Biden administration that had been finalized to require better staffing of nursing homes. So you're talking about long-term care. I'm talking about the institutional part of it. There's also a form of long-term care that involves, getting care at home. And so far, that should be fine. There are no attempts that I'm aware of to go after care at home or any of those kinds of provisions that are there, but there's nothing to expand it either. So there are a lot of people who need home health, and under Medicare, unless you're in a Medicare Advantage plan where there are more generous rules, and in traditional Medicare, it doesn't cover home health unless it's after a hospitalization or after a nursing home. So if you just need chore services or some help with your daily activities of living to stay in your home, unless your state has a waiver program, which Florida does, but it's capped, there isn't much for you, I'm afraid. So I think what we have to focus on right now is keeping what we have. And as I said, in a heartbreaking move and cynical move, the Trump administration decimated a rulemaking that had been done by the Biden administration, had gone through the courts and everything, and been upheld. But the nursing home industry fought it, and it would have required better staffing of nursing homes, which would have saved lives. And, there's unfortunately a very painful story to read in the New York Times about campaign contributions that occurred, and then the regulation got, canned because of that. So this is an area, I'm glad you raised it, because it's something that we haven't done enough on, is making sure that people have access to long-term care, to stay in their homes as long as they can. And if they need to be in a nursing home because they can't take care of themselves anymore, their family isn't there, we need to make sure it's safe. And those are things that I think the Congresswoman and her colleagues will work on once they're back in the majority. I know they will.
For sure. I mean, Nancy Ann, you remember there was a provision in the Affordable Care Act originally that provided for a long-term care program. It actually had to be repealed because it was determined to be actuarially unsound, and it wasn't something that was actually going to be able to provide the kind of benefits, from what I remember.
Yes, that's right. The Class Act. Yes.
Right. Exactly. So we've already demonstrated as Democrats that we're committed to trying to find an affordable way to make sure that long-term care is accessible. It is something that is such a huge issue. An aging population and the sandwich generation. I'm living in the sandwich generation right now. My father is aging, and he's doing great right now. But
Debbie wants the government to control your health care. Debbie wants the government to control your safety. Debbie wants the government to control the choices that you're allowed to make. Listen, she's been in that seat for over 20 years. If we have a problem with everything she's talking about, it's her fault. She did this. It's her fault that we wound up in this mess. And repeating the same thing that got us here is not going to fix it.
You had, the children of elderly people who were having to come out of pocket and be able to, or stop working to take care of their parents because they didn't have health care. And so that's what Medicare was originally enacted for, and it's been the lifeline for generations. But Medicare still doesn't cover long-term care services, and it puts another added stress on families who are already struggling. Look, what's important to note, this is the intersection of the immigration crisis that the administration has created, because the biggest threat to Trump's attack on immigrant workers, because Haitian TPS holders alone are nearly 1 in 10 of our home care workers in the
lobbying for people that came here unvetted. Like I said, yes, we want immigrants legally. TPS was not legal. They voided all vetting. Anybody who came to TPS, they need to be reviewed. We don't know who those people are. They may be great. They may be criminals. We don't know. But she just said people who came here illegally are taking 1 out of 10 home care jobs. That's the affordability crisis when you're pushing out Americans from having jobs here in America.
California too. I was talking to a doctor friend out there, and he said, I'm having trouble maintaining my senior patients because their home care workers are afraid to come to work because of ICE.
Some people might be able to stay at TPS. Some people may not. They need to be vetted from scratch because there was zero vetting. We don't know who those people are that came to TPS. That was a zero vetting, and that's scary. We have cartels, we have criminals, we have drug traffickers, we have actual thousands of terrorists that have now knowingly crossed the border under TPS.
Amount of money, and that's the largest payer of long-term care services in the United States.
The word TPS, only thing TPS means that people came here with zero checks, zero background checks. That's what TPS means. It doesn't mean they came here illegally. Or, I'm sorry, it doesn't mean they came here illegally. It means they came here completely unvetted.
And
we need to vet everybody who came to TPS, right or wrong. We need to vet them, see who's good and see who is a criminal.
And
thank goodness there's an election.
As they wrap up, I think everybody sees that, I don't think there's a single thing that Debbie and I will ever agree on, except for, the need that we need to improve our child care and elderly care services. But besides that, I mean, everything she's talking about is socialism and favoring illegal immigrants over actual Americans. And no taxpayer wants to pay for illegals when they can't afford to live their own life. I mean, it makes zero sense. Why are they being bled dry to give illegal immigrants a better life than they have? Why are they paying where they can't afford to even have kids or put their kids in daycare, but they're paying for illegal immigrants to have those services for free? This is the downfall of nations when the natives of a country are supporting the illegal immigrants. It's not going to last. It's not sustainable. We need to fix it, and we need to have compassion to the people that should be here, and we need to remove the criminals that should not be here. But at the very minimum, taxpayers should not be paying for illegals that are here when the taxpayers need to focus on their own affordability and taking care of their own family. We're at a crisis right now. People need help, and the last thing we need to do is ask them to pay more money in taxes to support other people. It's un-American. This is not the values. This is not what people want. And like she said earlier, elections have consequences. They will have consequences this November in 2026. She will not be the Congresswoman next year. I can guarantee you that. And for everybody that wants to continue supporting our campaign, Carbonara for Congress, you can go to our website, michaelcarbonara.com. You can sign up to support, yard signs, donate. I mean, everything's right there. And of course, please follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms from X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. With our handle is mcarbonarafl. And please support the campaign. We have a lot of momentum. We have a lot of surprises coming up. We're actually going to announce our own town hall coming up maybe next week with some very, very interesting information. We just completed our first independent poll. I think there's going to be a lot of surprises, and I think it's going to invigorate and motivate a lot of people in this district that have been looking for change for a very long time. And I can tell you this year that change is coming.
Bottom line is that no Floridian should go broke trying to protect their home from natural disasters. You have Trump's tariffs that are increasing the cost of building housing, builders passing along price hikes to home buyers. I remember my husband and I were able to buy our first house right before we got married. I was 24 and he was 26, Nancy Ann, and I mean, I have kids all in their 20s. They are nowhere near, and they all have full-time jobs. You know, graduated from college. One of my children has
that's a real issue. Is the affordability. This next generation is they need help, and this is the crossroads. They need to focus on freedom and get rid of the big government overtaxation. And I think the way we need to start looking at how do we measure where we are in success, in affordability, and prosperity. And it's not necessarily how much money you have in your pocket. I mean, of course, that's a big part of it. But we need to get back to a time when you can have a home, you can own your own home, have a family, kids, on one parent salary, a one job salary. Should be able to support owning a home and having a family. And that's what we need to get back to. We can't have two parents working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever it might be, having kids in daycare that are unaffordable. None of that makes sense. We need to get back where our dollar was stretched long enough where one parent could work and it could afford to raise a whole family and own your own home. That's what we need to get back to.
Have also made permanent or extended the enhanced premium tax credits in the same bill, which we pushed them to do and they refused.
We're going to wrap it up here. I think not much else to hear from Debbie, but it's the same old rhetoric. I want to go ahead and, if those are watching, we're going to roll up. Actually, we have a podcast coming up right now with myself and Adam Severa from the Broward County School Board. So please stay tuned for this podcast, and I think you'll find it very interesting. And not only that, but something I think is so important is the education system, particularly here in Broward. There's a lot going on. I think a lot of surprises that people don't realize what's been going on. But Adam Severa, he's the guy that's really making change and making it better for the kids in this county. And something I think if you don't know him already, every parent in Broward County needs to know who Adam Severa is.
Welcome to the Carbonara for Congress podcast, where we address the real issues that affect the lives of people and families who live right here with us in South Florida.
Hi, I'm Michael Carbonara, and on today's show we have Adam Severa from the Broward County School Board, District 6. We're going to talk about some of the cool new opportunities with the kids today and AI and the new era of the job market and how the schools can help them. And we're also going to talk about some of the waste, fraud, and abuse that we unfortunately in Broward County know all too well. And so we have Broward, Adam on the show today to talk about some of those things.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Great to be here.
Happy New Year.
You know, I've always wanted to do a podcast inside a bank vault, so I can definitely check this off my bucket list. So thank you for that.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, we got the safes where we're safe to talk about whatever comes to mind.
I feel very secure in this vault.
Right, you should be.
Thank you for having me. Happy New Year. All that great stuff. Hope your wife and your family's doing well.
You as well. Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, so, this is really interesting. I mean, education, very, very important. Broward County, interesting history with education. And if you can just talk a little bit about, how did you end up here? You're one of the board members of the school board here in Broward County. And I think you have an uphill battle and you've already had quite a bit of success. And you want to just give us a little about, your background, how you end up where you are today?
Absolutely. So I am a proud product of the Broward County Public School System. I actually completed my elementary school education, my middle school education, and I graduated from J.P. Tarreville High School in 2001. So I was fortunate and blessed enough to go to the University of Central Florida for my undergrad, followed by Florida International University for my law school degree. I'm currently a practicing attorney as my day job in addition to serving on the Broward County School Board. So I'm very deeply rooted in Broward County. And I've always felt a deep sense of gratitude to what the Broward County Public School System gave to me. I grew up in a single-parent household with a mother who sometimes worked two jobs, worked very hard to support me and her. And, for all intents and purposes, I could have been one of those kids that didn't quote-unquote make it, right? But fortunately for me, I was in great schools. I had phenomenal teachers growing up, and I learned the value and the importance of education. So as I rose through the educational ranks, so to speak, by the way, I always got A's and B's. Never got any C's growing up. I'm very, very proud of that. I've come to learn later in life how important an education is, whether it's a public school education, a charter school education, a private school education. These are all very, very important things. So when the opportunity was presented to me, when my predecessor retired and the opportunity was presented to me to potentially take over her seat in District 6, I thought about it very hard. I prayed about it, obviously consulted with my wife, with my family. I spoke to my priest many times about this to make the right decision. And it finally came down, Michael, to the fact that, listen, this district has given me so much from an education standpoint. I now have an opportunity to give back. And that's why I decided to take this role. And we do have our challenges at Broward County Public School. I think anybody who's been paying attention to the news lately or the news over the last couple of years has realized that. We do have our challenges. But I am proud to be a champion, not only just for my district, but for every tax-paying citizen and every resident and every student in this county to get this district back on track. And I'm going to be happy to share throughout the show today some of the things that we've been doing to try to get back to greatness, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's really needed. I mean, for people that are in Broward, we all know, and for people outside of Broward, in case they don't know, Broward is one of the schools that we've lost so much in enrollment. Parents have been so upset because this is one of the, I would say, ground zero for the indoctrination of our school systems, and upset a lot of people, causing school closures, upset parents, protests, and I think parents, I mean, I live in Broward too, and I have kids. They're not quite school age yet, but I want them to be able to have schools to go to. I think people that have been in leadership in the Board of Education, in the schools in general, lost track of education and what it actually meant to teach other people's kids. So I really hope, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and I hope that it's successful. And what are some of your plans? What would you like to tell parents, things that they may not know what's going on within the school system, or how can they get involved with what's happening to their kids and maybe make an impact?
Well, first and foremost, we've lost this idea over the years, and it's one of my platforms that are very important to me. Parents control their kids, not the state, not the teachers, not the principals. These are your children as parents. Mm-hmm. You've entrusted them with us as a district to educate them, and we will do our best to educate them. But you are still the parents. You have every right to be involved in every decision that your child is a part of within Broward County Public Schools. Transparency as far as curriculum, education, everyday decisions. I tell my parents all the time, you need to be involved in this. This is a joint effort. We obviously encourage involvement as much as possible, but there's been this notion nationwide over the last several years, and it kind of came to a precipice during COVID-19 when a lot of people were getting insider information because they were watching their kids do the Zoom schools, right? They were starting to figure out what's going on. Okay. And they were really starting to figure out, hey, I have no idea what the heck my kid is being taught.
So this is going on much, much longer. It just it came about because of the Zooms.
100%.
Wow, okay.
So one of my big things is parental involvement, parental choice and having an opportunity to decide where you want your child to go to school, even if it's not your home school. We're going to find the best case or the best place for your child to be educated. And when they get there, I'm hoping and praying that you want to be involved. And if you do, I'm going to give you every opportunity for you to be involved in that child's education. And I'm going to be transparent as possible so you know everything that is going on in your child's educational life. And for far too long, I feel like parents have been kept in the dark. So under my watch, this is very, very important to me. I have school-age children, right? I send them to school every morning. I see what I have to go through personally, and obviously professionally in my role as a school board member. Parents call me all the time. Teachers call me all the time. Administrators call me all the time. And making sure we have parental involvement, parental rights, and transparency is of the utmost importance to me.
How are the teachers, the principals, how are they handling that type of leadership, which is drastically different than what's been there the last few years? I mean, what are they saying? Do they want the involvement? Do they welcome the change of direction that you're taking?
Most of our teachers are great teachers. Just like in any facet of life, whether it's in business or whatever, could there be a couple bad apples here and there? Of course. Nobody's perfect. But the majority of our teachers are great teachers. They're doing this because they love their job and they love the kids. Let's be honest, they're not doing it for the pay, right?
Yeah.
They don't get paid a lot, which is incidentally a big problem, Michael.
I know.
In this district.
My wife was a teacher. My mother-in-law is still a teacher. I'm well aware. It's a tough job.
Yeah. So they're not doing it for the pay. They're doing it because they love the profession, they love the kids, and they really feed and enjoy that ability to influence and educate our kids. Yeah. And I guarantee you, if you went out and randomly polled 10 teachers and asked them, hey, how important is parental involvement in your day-to-day with what you do? All of them, I hope, would say, very, very important to me, if not the most important thing, right? We need to get our parents involved, and we need to give them opportunities to be involved. And perhaps most importantly, we need to let them know that they can be involved. This is not, you drop the kid off and you totally forget what's going on and you ignore it to the next day. We want to give parents as much access, as much transparency as possible to give them that opportunity to be involved. Because collectively, between our schools and the parents, working as a team, right, we have the best shot to give our kids the best education possible.
No, that's really wonderful. And, I think, just like you said, you relate it to a business. It's just any organization, you kind of have to root out the bad apples. You have to create efficiencies because it's not just about people that may say they're doing their job, but there's a domino effect. We saw our state CFO, he recently did an audit of the county, found over $200 million of fraud. And I'm sure that also trickles down to education. There's people really not just on top of their job. Recently, there was some issues with the COO of Broward County, and you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Another big problem that we have in the district that I'm trying to tackle is the way we spend money. Okay? Sometimes people forget, some of my colleagues forget, that as a district, we are the stewards of taxpayers' money, right? If you pay taxes, property taxes in Broward County, a portion of those taxes fund the school board. Now, we have a $5+ billion with a B, dollar budget at the school board. Incidentally, there was so much bloat in that thing that I voted against it. But be that as it may, I was outvoted, okay? And incidentally, there was not enough money for our teachers within that budget, which was the primary reason why I voted against it. But we have a $5+ billion budget in Broward County Public Schools, okay? That's a lot of money. The entire county's budget for this year, I think, was like either $8 or $9 billion. So we're not that far off from Broward County as a whole, right? And considering all the things that the county has to do on top of the school board.
And you're talking about a budget where so many parents are upset, so many parents are pulling their kids out of the schools, enrollment's dwindling. There's empty buildings, and there's still a $5 billion budget.
It's crazy.
How does that work?
So over the last 10 to 15 years, we've lost tens of thousands of kids. Students, okay? They've just left the district. Despite that, we have grown internally. Hundreds of new employees. To me, that makes no sense, right? You have to remember, for every student that participates or joins or is a part of Broward County Public Schools, BCPS, we get certain dollars from the state. It was $9,500 this year. So if we lost roughly 9,000 kids this year, okay, at a hair over 9,000 per student, we're talking $88-89 million that we lost from the state due to our enrollment problems. So we are hemorrhaging money. We are operating at a $100 million deficit,
Wow.
which is bonkers. And there has to be some real drastic action taken if we're going to take the corrective measures needed to save this district. And let me tell you, I'm happy to be the person who takes that task on. I've been very vocal about transparency and accountability when it comes to finances. I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't run from that. I don't hide from that. I let everyone in earshot know that that's my position. And if the citizens of Broward County are going to entrust me with $5 billion with a B, I'm going to make sure that money is properly being accounted for. And I'll give you an example of something that happened recently that I'll step in and right the ship. We all know, due to the lack of enrollment problem we're having, there are schools that are half full, schools that are operating at 30-40%. Space in this district is not a problem, okay? And despite that, a decision was made to go out and rent a separate building to house staff members to the tune of $2.6 million. Now,
who's making these decisions? Because, I mean, that's just really just abuse of funds. I mean, there's no responsibility there. There's no, we need accountability. Do parents even know this? Do people are aware where money's being spent on a day-to-day basis?
Well, listen, they know now, because once that happened and it came to light what actually was being done with this lease and the actual terms that was happening, because unfortunately the school board got myself and my colleagues got some bad information about it initially. We instructed the superintendent to put it back as an agenda item, and we canceled that lease, saving the taxpayers potentially millions of dollars on a wasted building that we did not need. These are just some of the missteps that this county does, or this district does, when it comes to finances.
No, this sounds just like the fraud and abuse found in the USAID, when all these federal government buildings were empty, but 5-10-year leases being paid on it. I mean,
absolutely,
that's absurd.
It's absurd.
Is it negligence, or is it more to it than that?
So, listen, I like to think, and I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, that nothing nefarious was going on. And maybe someone was negligent, maybe they were incompetent. Okay. Now, we are doing a deep dive into this, and we're doing investigations. And if it turns out that anything criminal happened, or anything above a negligence standard happened, we will make sure this gets turned over to the proper authorities and that the proper corrective action is taken. However, even assuming that there was nothing negligent that happened, nothing criminal that happened or nothing nefarious that happened, and it was just mere negligence or mere incompetence, to me, I reached a breaking point recently. Now, you may have saw, in addition to this lease debacle, we also had an issue with a procurement process that the district bundled completely by not properly putting out an RFQ for a construction management project that was worth millions and millions of dollars. As a result of that RFQ being flawed, the board had to vote it down. And because we had to vote it down, the current contract that we had with the management company, the construction management company, ACOM, is now set to expire. As of right now, we do not have a construction management company to oversee all of the smart bond projects that are still going. $1.2 billion worth of projects don't have a construction management company as of today. Now, the superintendent had to declare an emergency, and we are doing some things in order to try to correct this. The bigger picture is this is the second misstep between the lease agreement debacle and now this RFQ procurement problem. This has been way too many mistakes in a short period of time for me to be okay with. So what I did, Michael, last week, I publicly called for the resignation of our chief operating officer, Wanda Paul. I sent that message out, and within a matter of days, she tendered her resignation. So we are taking some steps forward to try to right this ship.
No, that's great for accountability, and that's what people want to see, accountability, and just basic awareness. I mean, I don't think people realize how important this is. It sounds like this is a school matter, but, there's a national conversation about affordability. This is directly a part of that conversation. I mean, this is money that people are paying. Every taxpayer in this county is paying for that negligence.
We call it OPM. You know what that stands for?
Of course.
Other people's money, right?
Easy to spend.
Very easy to spend other people's money.
Yeah.
But joking aside, okay, we have to be accountable to our constituents. We have to be accountable to every resident in Broward County for every dollar that we spend, okay? I look at the numbers, and when I see something I don't like, I call it out, which is why you saw my demand for our COO's resignation. When we have these issues, I am not going to let them slide. I will be a fiscal hawk. I'm an attorney by trade. I know how to read a budget. I know how to read a contract. I draft contracts. I litigate over contracts for a living. Okay. This is my wheelhouse. And I'm happy to be the most vocal person on the board. I wear that as a badge of honor. People tell me, oh, well, you're just, the loud guy who's calling everybody out. Yeah.
No, people want that candid. They want answers.
That's what I'm here for.
I mean, you have to speak up when something's going wrong. Otherwise, you're complacent.
Exactly.
And people need to change that culture in the organization. Speak up when there's something wrong, because it hurting the kids. It's hurting everyone.
Exactly. And, sometimes people really don't understand that the district and the school board, I mean, this is basically like running a company with a $5 billion budget, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we do
Except
more.
There's no incentive to save money, and that's the problem.
Exactly. We do more than, purchase textbooks and pay teachers, right? This is a full-blown, full-scale operation. And you need people on the school board, okay, who know how business works, who know how to read contracts, who understand finance, who understand how an audit works. You need people like that to call out staff. We have hundreds of staff members within the Casey Wright building, our headquarters in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people. Right. What all of them do sometimes, I don't know. But I'll tell you
and
this.
you're on the school board, and you don't know.
And I'm on the school board.
That's, again,
right?
This is the inefficiencies. I mean, this is the problem of government in general. Everything is bloated. There's no conservative efficiency to anything, and that's just where you get fraud and abuse. And it goes back to the taxpayers, but the kids. I mean, you're wasting that money. Could be going to the kids. New technologies, new education, new textbooks, whatever you want to be. Those resources are being drained by bloat and inefficiency. 100%.
And listen, I'll tell you this. We're just coming off the holiday season, right? You thought there was a lot of bloat in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. You have no idea. You come on down to the Broward County School Board, and I'll show you bloat. And I have no problem being the guy calling it out, coming up with creative, effective solutions on how to right this ship, right?
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I can't imagine any parents hearing you and saying, I disagree with you, Adam, you're crazy, I don't want to hear of it. Like, they must be ecstatic. Like, how do we get involved? How do we change things? I mean, how do we change things? It can't just be a one-man show. It can't be just you, You sound alarmed like Paul Revere, but, how do we do something?
Well, I'll tell you this. Elections have consequences, right? They do. And for far too long, unfortunately, the people who keep getting elected to the school board are not making what I believe to be the best decisions in the interests of Broward County, right? We have to look at this as a giant, giant jigsaw puzzle with pieces scattered everywhere. My grandmother's 90 years old, and one of the things she loves to do is just do these giant jigsaw puzzles, and she'll sit there for just days on end, working a small piece here and a small piece there, right?
My grandmother had that in common.
Yeah. And I mean, you've heard the expression, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? These things take time. And I make the analogy with the jigsaw puzzle, because this isn't something, where I'm going to come in, shake a few trees, fire a couple people or anything like that, and it's going to change. This has been in a downward spiral for so many years at the district level that it is going to take time. But you know what? You've got to start somewhere. And it starts with corrective action. And I was proud and I was happy to be involved in taking the lead in getting that lease contract terminated. I was proud to be the one who actually had the guts to stand up and call for the resignation of our COO and said, you know what? Enough is enough. We need fresh eyes. We need change. You've got to go. This isn't working. We've also had a recent issue that I was not on the board when it initially happened. Full caveat to the listeners out there. This was a 2024 thing, and I was not on the board. But I was happy that I was able to be a champion to get it set aside. There was a vote a couple years back in which the citizens of Broward County voted to give certain referendum dollars to our teachers, okay, and the staff-based school members for education, for safety, for mental health counseling, things like that.
Yeah.
Teachers, school-based staff. This is what the voters in Broward County voted on, to give the teachers and school-based staff more money. Well, of course, because it happened in Broward, you want to take a guess how many high-ranking officials, how many cabinet-level officials were getting a portion of that referendum money over the last couple years before it was finally called out and we had to do something to set it aside? Quite a bit.
I can imagine Broward County. Yeah. That's just really sad. That's just, I mean, it's predatory. It's evil. It's
$500,000, Michael, was going to what I like to call the fat cats at the top, right? That's where a portion of this referendum money, which it should have been going to the teachers. And when I caught wind of this, there was a local blog piece that brought this to light. Because again, this happened before I was on the school board. This was brought to light. I immediately notified the superintendent about what was going on, which to his credit, when he was negotiating his contract, he opted not to take these referendum dollars. Everybody else did, but he said no. When this came to light, I immediately contacted the superintendent and I told him, we need to get this in front of the board and this needs to be terminated immediately. And quite frankly, I think we, as a district, owe an apology to every single teacher and every school-based staff member who did not get a portion of that. I believe it was like almost $500,000 of referendum money that went to high-ranking staff members at the district. Because to me, as I said on the record, in one word, unacceptable. We do not pay our teachers anywhere near what they should be making. And then on top of that, the small stipend that the voters of this county decided was appropriate for them, you have the goal to take that away and give it to people who work at basically headquarters, who don't touch the students every day, who are not involved in the day-to-day, who are not school-based. That was unacceptable. And I was very, very vocal about it. I let my position be known, and I'm happy to report that was able to convince, thankfully, the majority of my colleagues on the dais, and we were able to right that wrong and fix it. So moving forward now, those referendum monies and those referendum dollars are going directly to the teachers.
That's amazing. Thank you for that work. No, that's really, teachers deserve it. Taxpayers wanted it, like you said. It's funny that the swamp is alive and well in Broward, just like it is in D.C. I mean, we are literally built on the swamp here. And it's bad, and it's been bad for a long time. I mean, it's not just education, it's all areas of government in Broward County. So, yeah, I commend you for that work, and I think that parents, I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't want to support you, and especially your election upcoming this year.
Yes.
I think you're fighting harder than everybody else there. You're the loudest voice I've seen on the board, and I thank you for that.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, Michael, these are not controversial issues, right? They're really not.
No, it's common sense.
It's common
and
sense.
That's what people want. They want common sense.
Yeah.
They don't want left versus right. They don't want all this indoctrination. They just want, for education, they want their kids to get education, and they don't want to be ripped off.
Yep,
It's
exactly.
plain and simple. It's common sense.
And we owe it to every citizen in Broward County, whether they pay taxes or not. We owe it to every citizen, but especially the taxpayers, to be fiscally responsible for what we do with those dollars and hold people to account. And if we find out, listen, I've said this publicly, if I find out that there's waste, fraud, or abuse going on within my district, and believe me, we are looking from a lot of different angles, right? And if we find that out, I have no problem calling for people's heads at all. This is not, I'm not interested in being part of the club. I'm interested in doing what's right for my constituents in my district and for all of the kids within Broward County. That's the only thing that matters to me. I don't care about the cocktail parties, right? I don't care if I get invited to the Christmas parties. Okay, I have plenty of friends. I'll find another party, right? That's not on the list.
There's no
of
shortage of
priorities.
those. So I understand where you're coming from there.
So I want to do what's best for our kids and for everybody who pays any amount of money in taxes to this district, we have to be accountable.
Yeah, no, it's very, very true. And no, I think what you're doing is great, but can you tell me some things that are actually positive going on? I mean, you're cleaning up the schools, you're fixing waste, fraud, and abuse. What can you say is great about Broward schools? What's going on with the kids? I know you've told me in the past about the Microsoft AI co-pilot program going on, which I know some people think AI is controversial. I think it's great bringing that opportunity to kids here. What can people look forward to with the kids in Broward schools today? Well,
I will tell you, overall, the district, education-wise, and this comes from rankings based on the Florida Department of Education, so it's not an internal thing. Education-wise, we are an A-rated school district for the second year in a row. So we are very, very proud of that on the education front. We have no D or F schools in the entire county. So the lowest ranking school we have would be a C school, but that's a tremendous improvement over the years. When in this district we had D and F schools, so we're very proud of that ranking, and we're very proud of the work that our administrators and our teachers are doing to educate our kids. We have tremendous graduation rates. Our kids are graduating, they're going to college, and there's kind of this new thing going on where kids are deciding, hey, maybe college isn't for me. And they're going to technical schools, and they're learning trades. They're learning to be auto mechanics, and they're learning to be plumbers and electricians.
No, I think that's absolutely great. I tried college. It wasn't for me. I was one of those kids. Yeah. And I went there because I thought that's what you do next. Yeah. And it's just if you don't know what you're going to do, if you don't want to be burdened with huge student loans that you'll never pay off, that's the better option. Trade schools, mechanical schools, entrepreneurship, go 100%. Through a mentorship program.
100%. And we have lots of technical schools within the county. I've got some great ones within my district. The point is, Michael, we're giving kids the options. Because listen, college is not for everybody. I was a little bit of a bookworm, right? I was a little bit of a nerd. So college was the right fit for me. That doesn't mean that it's going to be the right fit for the class of 2026 or the class of 2027. It should be an opportunity if you want it. But if you don't, you should be able and you should be afforded other opportunities.
The thing is, nowadays we have so much information. We have, there's online classes for free. Harvard provides their classes for free online. So if you want to get information, if you want to empower yourself with information, it's there. You don't necessarily have to go to college. But if you're going to pursue a career where you need some accredited degrees, if you want to be a lawyer, obviously college is for you. But there's so many opportunities today. And it's all at our fingertips from 24/7 at our homes.
Absolutely.
And I think we should explore everything like that.
And we want to give our kids the best opportunity to do that and let them know that there's no right way to do things necessarily after high school, right? Obviously, we want you to get a job and be a productive member of society, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go to an Ivy League school, right? If you want to be a plumber, if you want to be an auto mechanic, there are trade schools and there are opportunities for you to do that. Listen, as we start to talk about AI here, I'm pretty sure no matter how advanced AI becomes, if my carburetor needs to be changed, I don't think a robot is going to be able to do that with AI.
Those trade schools are going to be booming because those people, they're going to be in high demand to support all that AI infrastructure. Yeah. And people, it's actually the white-collar stuff, it's the liberal arts stuff that's getting replaced by AI, where it doesn't have to be replaced, but it makes it more efficient. So one person can do the job of 10 people.
Correct.
But those trade schools are going to be so invaluable, and we need it. We need hundreds of thousands of these jobs, maybe millions, and kids need to actually start looking at that because the pay is going to be great too. It's not even that you're making a sacrifice. You can actually be a skilled craftsman and help people and make a great living at it.
Yeah. So giving the kids the opportunities and giving the kids the options and the information, right? Information and knowledge is power, is what's of the utmost importance. And I think the district has done a good job. On the AI front, we are proud to be one of the first, if not the first, school district in the entire country to partner with Microsoft and their co-pilot options. Some of our older students are being integrated with that. It's being put into the curriculums and the teaching platforms. And listen, we got to face reality. Whether you like it or not, AI is here to stay, right? So why not give the kids the tools to benefit so they can understand it? And if it can help them in the learning process and in the teaching process, I'm all for it. I was at a middle school recently, and I visited a math classroom where they were using VR headsets to solve geometry problems.
That's interesting.
And the way that the shapes and the angles were all coming together in this virtual format on your headset, it made things make sense. I mean, listen, you and I are old. When we went to school, we had our rulers, and we had to draw, and we had our graphing calculators and things like that. That's really, I mean, obviously it's still present, but there's been so many advances in the way that we can teach harder subjects. I was never a math guy, right? Geometry wasn't I didn't get straight A's in geometry, right? But the tools that we have at our fingertips now for our students are really helping them. And I imagine that in some of the quote-unquote harder subjects that where we're integrating this virtual reality and this AI, you're going to start to see an uptick in our kids' scores, in their grades, how they test on FAST, how they're coming out, what their GPAs are. I think it's going to make a big improvement, and I'm happy to be a part of this experiment, for lack of better terms, because not a lot of school districts are doing it. So I'm very optimistic, and I think it's going to work out.
Yeah. So Adam, I mean, Broward's got a long history of, could be nefarious, could be negligence, who knows, but definitely room for improvement. Can you walk us through the history? How do we end up here?
Yeah, well, it's been a problem for quite a few years, decades, I might add. I mean, we didn't get to this point overnight, right? We didn't get here overnight. And I can tell you some of the things that I've sort of discovered in my tenure here, right? That you just look at it and you just scratch your head, like, how could this happen? For instance, I'll give you a good example. Overtime pay. We spend millions and millions of dollars in overtime pay. Now, I want you to ponder this, right? We have set schedules for schools. We know when the school starts, and we know when the school ends. Now, granted, some schools will have aftercare programs and things like that, but you account for that.
Yeah.
But we are on a fixed schedule. It's not like we are going off and spending hours and hours and hours and keeping kids or doing things outside of the school day. We know what we're doing. We set the schedules years in advance, with maybe the exception of our bus drivers or cafeteria workers, because some of our schools serve dinner to the kids. With the exception of those folks, because, traffic and sometimes the bus is full and they have to run alternate routes or whatever. With the exception of those folks, why do people need overtime? What are they doing? We give our teachers planning periods. We know when the kids leave the schools.
Yeah.
Right? Why do we need to pay millions and millions and millions of dollars in overtime pay? It doesn't make sense. And we've been doing it for a long time. Fortunately, after my urging, the superintendent has issued a directive in which several cost-cutting measures will be implemented. There's a current hiring freeze going on right now. He's taking a hard look at overtime and putting the kibosh on overtime. So we are taking small steps. But how we got here was the initial question. And when you do things like that as a district, it's only obvious that you're going to reach a breaking point. And I'll tell you another problem that we have. Okay, in this district, we love to sign long-term, expensive contracts. I don't know what it is, but the majority of the contracts that come to us are always 3 years. Everything is 3 years. 3 years is always the magic number, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm an attorney by trade. I read those darn things. I know what they say. I go through some of them when they're over a certain financial threshold. I go line by line. And we've spent hours on agenda items in which I'm going over contracts. But we love in this district to spend money on these long-term contracts. Now, I'll ask you this. In my mind, the only benefit to signing a long-term contract, to me, would be in year 2, we'll use my 3-year hypothetical. In year 2 and year 3, you are locking in some type of savings.
Absolutely. That's
right?
the only purpose for a long-term contract.
Only
I mean,
purpose,
that's what we do in business.
And unfortunately, with a lot of these contracts, that's not the case. And we love software licensing. Do not get me started on the software licensing. We spend millions and millions and millions on these software licenses. And a lot of these software programs, listen, I'm not the most savvy of tech guys, but even I know that the technology game is a fast-moving game, right? What's useful today may be completely obsolete tomorrow. I wouldn't want to be the guy who's making DVD players right now, right? Because who the heck uses DVD players anymore?
Yeah.
And the problem that we consistently have in this district when we enter into these bloated long-term contracts, and there are a lot of software contracts, how do we know in 3 years that this program or this product that's being offered to us is not going to be obsolete? Or there's not going to be a better, cheaper, more efficient version of it out there? And guess what? Now we're locked in for 3 years. And we're stuck.
We got to be a litigator and find the termination issue.
You've got to find the termination issues.
No, I'll go back to the AI for a second too, because you're saying you're going through the bigger contracts. Obviously, that's the most efficient use of your time. Instead of going to every little contract, with the AI data scrubber, you can actually go through all those contracts, all the expenditures, and create variables where you can actually identify anything that's outside the norm very quickly. And talk about technology and AI. This is how AI should be used: is to hold government accountable and transparency. And that's a great use. I mean, that's how we did the USAID audit, and that can be done everywhere. And it can not just be finding the fraud, but ongoing. It lets real-time awareness of where money is being spent, so you can make real-time decisions to correct it.
100%. And like I said, I'm not the most tech-savvy person, but I can tell you I do have people that are sort of in my inner circle, if you will, who are very good at the AI stuff.
Yeah.
And we do integrate that a lot of times in the review process. And I'm sort of learning the ropes on how to do that, because I agree, it's a great tool. And it could point things and obviously, trust but verify, right? Because I'm always hesitant just to rely solely on AI.
Yeah, you have to have the human factor in there. You have to
100%.
manage it. You have to, you can't just let it loose and just hope for the best.
I've seen that go sideways a couple times. Not personally, but I've read about it in the news, right? So trust but verify. But yeah, absolutely. Anything that can help make our jobs more efficient and more precise as school board members, I'm all in favor of it. And I'm sure I speak for all of my colleagues when I say, if there's a method that you can use to actually digest and break down the information that's being given to you in a more efficient and effective way, I don't imagine a scenario where anybody wouldn't be on board with that. Because you have to remember, Michael, the way we do things is we have agenda items, right? And we have monthly regular school board meetings. Sometimes we have special meetings, but at our regular monthly school board meeting, we're presented with thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of documents, right, to go over on various agenda items that we're going to do for that day. And a lot of the things that we go over are contract-based. It's funny, I tell people this all the time. And this is not a knock on teachers in any way, shape, or form. Because, like I said, I have family members that are teachers that have taught in public school for decades. I love our teachers, okay? But there's this concept and there's this notion out there that you need more teachers on the school board. Okay, I think we have 6 teachers on our school board right now. Okay, that have taught in some capacity over the course of their professional career.
Okay, well, let's stop there. Why do they think they need teachers on the school board?
It just seems to be like this MO that people have in their brains that, if you have a teacher on the school board, they understand what's going on in the school, so that'll be what's best for the school. The reality is, Michael, going back to what I said before, operating this district, operating this school board is really like operating a company. You need people who have been in the business world, right? Again, who know how to read budgets, who understand audits, who know how to read contracts, right? Who know how licensure works, right? And they understand aspects of litigation. We're in 300 active lawsuits right now in the district, 300. And, I God bless our legal department's hearts, because they've got their plate full, and obviously we have outside counsel helping us too. But there's a lot of aspects to this district that people don't understand, and you need professionals on the board.
One thing it's put in simple terms, and you can look at this in any scenario, but I look at it when people, I'm running for Congress for 25th District. I say, what has Debbie done for the last 20 years? We got here, so of course we need to change. You can say the same thing for the school board, is how do we get here? Who's on the board? Who's been on the board for the last 10, 15 years? And how do we get here? Because what's been working there doesn't work.
No.
You get bad results, so why continue doing the same thing that gave you these results to start with? You need change.
What's the definition of insanity, right?
Yeah.
Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I'm hopeful, and I'm cautiously optimistic that folks are starting to wake up. The Sun Sentinel has done a great job of pointing out a lot of the shenanigans that have been happening in the last 8 or 9 months since I've been on the board, right? And pointing out a lot of the quite frankly, the stupidity of what's been done. And nothing will help institute change faster than bringing things out into the light, right? Listen, I can go to the top of the mountain and I can scream at the top of my lungs, but let's be real. Not everybody's going to hear me. But when we get this extended media coverage that we've been getting, thank God, right? And I'll continue to work with all of our media
Yeah, you got to keep it up right now where people are paying attention,
Exactly.
where people really want this change.
That's when the change is going to start, because people are going to start waking up and be like, listen, what the heck is going on, right? It's there's been a little bit of a shift at the school board level. For the last couple of years, the focus has really been on social issues. We don't want the trans indoctrination within our classrooms. We don't want biological males playing on the girls' volleyball team. And while I still agree with all of that, the fortunate thing about us living in the great state of Florida is a lot of these things have been codified into the law into law already. So we have laws on the books that detail how things have to be and how things have to be interpreted, and what the legislator, as the lawmaking body for all the citizens of Florida, expects.
Yeah, and part of that is, I know a lot has been codified, but the problem is that many parents are not aware of what's going on, because unless they're doing a Zoom where they accidentally find out. Because I've talked to students, and there's still a lot of that going on within the schools, just that's not being reported. There's no accountability because nobody's reporting on it. Teachers, the bad actors, are actually ignoring the law and teaching things that should not be taught, or violating the law, or violating the parental guidance of what I want my kids to learn. But until we have that accountability and transparency, we need to do something about it, because the laws might be great on paper, but we need them to follow it.
100% right. And I tell my parents this all the time, no matter where I go, whether I'm speaking in a Democrat club or a Republican club or somewhere in the middle. I tell my parents this all the time. If a teacher or administrator or a janitor, I don't care who it is at the school, is doing something that violates the law, that violates the Parental Rights and Education Act, anything like that, you get in touch with me. You call me. I will go to that school. I don't care if it's in my district or not. I will go to that school, and I'll get to the bottom of it. And if a change has to happen, I will be the champion for that change. I get it. We can't be everywhere, all at once, right?
Yeah.
We've got, over 200,000 kids that we're educating in our traditional schools and our charter schools, and we can't be everywhere at once. But I tell my parents this all the time: if you suspect something that's going on, you pick up the phone, you send an email to Adam Cervera. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And incidentally, I've done that in the last couple months that I've been here. I've done those school visits. I've had those tough conversations. I've let people know that, listen, you may not like the law, but in this district, we are going to follow the law. Period. There's no exceptions. It's not aspirational. The law is the law, and we're going to follow the law here. So we are very fortunate, Michael. It's on some of the social issues that a lot of it has been codified in statute, and we can point to it and be like, listen, if you don't like that law, run for the state house and go change it. But right now, until that happens, this is the law. But if I may, just to finish the point, in addition to the social issues, which obviously has caught everybody's eye, over the last 4, 5, 6 years, people are starting to focus more on the financial aspects of how the district is being run. And I'll tell you, it doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum, okay? Money is money, and people care about how their dollars are spending, whether they're the leftists of Democrats or the rightist of Republicans. They care about where those dollars are coming. And the financial waste and financial mismanagement that has been brought into the open of this district of late is really having parents from all walks of life, social, economical, political, what have you, all coming together to say, wait a second, this isn't right. And I've tried to be the most vocal proponent of pointing this out, letting people know what's going on, and taking steps that I believe will help make a big difference and a big change.
No, that's excellent. And I think one way people have actually been speaking out about that is in Florida we do have school choice, and now we have vouchers now. So people are actually showing it, and that's why we had lower enrollment in Broward for a little bit, because parents would actually say, well, I don't agree with what's going on here. I'm going to take my kid and put him in a different school. And I think once you see that, that's tangible change. People, teachers, the administration, they can see that and they say, okay, I need to react now because it's actually, parents are doing something about it.
Absolutely.
And that's something I think at the federal level, that's something we could do. We can have universal school choice, because Broward's not the only place in the country that's having these problems. But in order to fix it, we need to give competition, which creates a better environment for choices, and better, when there's more competition, you get better quality because people actually have to compete for those students and do a better job for those students.
100%. And perhaps the most important aspect of this, of the whole school choice debate, if you will, it gives parents the opportunity to decide what they believe is best for their child's education. Whether you want to send them to a school that will teach them the gospel, whether you want to send them to a school that is a charter school, whether you want to send to a Jewish day school, whatever you decide as a parent, because you know your child best, right? Whatever you decide as a parent, you should be given that opportunity to send your child to that school, even if it's not within your home district. Even if you got to, get in the car every morning and drive a half hour in a different direction to get your kid to the school that you want them to go to.
Yeah.
As a parent in this state, you should have that ability.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And, we shouldn't be just locked in and stuck with what we have. If it's not working, we need to have options. And absolutely, on the federal level, we need that. I mean, I grew up in New York. Unfortunately, I went to some good schools, but there were some really bad schools. And you have a situation where you have teachers that might be dealing with a situation where they have so many different students that some students may, be the problem students, violent students. Some students don't even speak the same language. And you need choices so people can actually be put in situations where the teachers can better teach them. And that's better for everyone.
100%. And you know what? I think the folks in Broward County and in our respective districts, and I know we share portions of the district together, I think people are getting tired. I think they're getting tired of what has been the quote-unquote norm for, years and years and years. And they're starting to wake up, right? And it starts with just giving them the information, shining a light on what's going on. Fortunately, we're now in a day and age with a 24-hour news cycle. We have podcasts, video podcasts, audio podcasts, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the whole nine yards. The information's there.
Yeah, people are connected now. It's not the mainstream media. I think it's dead.
Yeah.
And this way, we have. I kind of think in my mind. I think as society, we move to everything be decentralized or peer-to-peer. From the banking sector, that's how I look at things. But communication is also going the same way. We don't need a central authority telling us how to live our lives, how to spend our money, how to educate our kids. We can communicate with each other and make those decisions together at a local level.
100%.
And I think the world's gonna be a better place for that, because the more the more options we have, the more options means the more competition, more quality, more creativity, and everybody benefits. And that also gets rid of the bloat, because people see it right away and saying, hey, why does this person get paid $400,000 a year? They're not even doing anything.
Yep.
And it just allows it to put resources to the actual purpose, which is educating our kids.
Yep. Obviously I don't have everybody's salaries, committed to memory, but, in my world, I was thinking, and I was having a conversation with a constituent the other day, and the young lady, she's a mom of a second grader. She said to me, if you were to get rid of like 3 or 4 of these high-paying or highly paid, cabinet level members that you have at the school board, and outsource the work, or maybe allow it to be more of a collaborative or a team effort with lower paid individuals, and you were to get rid of 3 or 4 of them, and let's say you saved $1 million, wouldn't it be nice to tell the teachers that, hey, we just found another $1 million that can go towards your salary, your bonuses, your raises, and things like that? There is opportunity for change, but bold, and dare I say, daring decisions have to be made at the district level. And it may not be popular with the traditional establishment, right? They may not like it. The folks that have been in that building for 20 years.
People are tired of the establishment, like you said. They don't want it anymore. And I'm all for supporting the teachers, because you want to talk about having better quality education. We're not attracting everybody that we could be attracting, because when they look at how much hard work it is, how much unappreciation they get, and how little pay they get, why am I going to do this? The people that are there really love what they're doing.
Yeah.
But we need more teachers,
100%.
especially because we have more people coming to Florida. Our population in Florida is growing. We need more teachers, and we're not going to attract them if we treat them like this.
It sickens me that I talk to teachers in my district who tell me that they have to wait tables as a second job just to pay the rent, when I have people, in my building, at the Casey Wright building, that are in a 32% tax bracket, right?
Yeah.
High wage earners, right? That, to me, that's heartbreaking.
That is.
Because the lifeblood of any school district is the teachers, right? It's the students and the teachers. If the students and the teachers aren't there, what the hell is the point of a school district, right? This is why we do everything we do. It's for the kids, right? And if we continue to underpay our teachers, and we continue to suffer from these enrollment problems, and then everybody's kind of looking around, it's like, well, I don't get it. Well, are you really attracting the best and brightest of teachers when your starting salary is $52,000 a year? You can't survive in South Florida.
No,
for
that sounds like a lot of money
$52,000
for some people, but in Florida, that is not a lot of money.
You cannot survive in South Florida, especially in major metropolitan parts of Broward County, for $52,000.
No, I've had a lot of friends the last few years that the affordability has gone way down here, and like maybe 3-4 years during COVID, and it hasn't slowed down. They said, hey, don't worry, 2 months during your lease renewal, it's going to be an extra $1,000, $1,500 a month. Yeah. I know a lot of people that got pushed out of their houses all over South Florida, and the prices have not come down since then.
Yeah, or you have to live with a roommate. Now listen, this is nothing against people who have roommates, but I'm a firm believer that if you're a professional and you're in your mid 30s or late 30s, you shouldn't have to, especially if you're a teacher, you shouldn't have to live with a roommate.
No, how are you supposed to have a family?
Yes, exactly.
It's there's so many domino effects here. It all comes about having a career or a job that can actually support your life, so you can live a life,
100%.
Not just support life 12 hours a day, so you have to go work another shift somewhere else to support the other 12 hours.
And we want there to be a good home life balance, right? And professionally speaking, with our teachers. Right?
Yeah.
We want them to go to work.
Happy, keeps them kids happy. I mean, there's this whole psychology there. Like, if they're having to work a night job, how are they planning the curriculum the next day?
How are they taking care of their kids?
Yeah.
Or if they're younger, how are they going out and meeting a potential spouse? I mean, most people, they want the American dream. Yeah. They want to get married. They want to have kids.
Affordability and quality of life, so you can actually live your life.
Exactly. They want to buy that first house.
So it's full circle. It really is. Education and the kids getting the attention so they can go get a job and they can have a quality of life and affordability. It all actually starts here with teachers and education, because that's the foundation for the next generation to live that way. And I think we need to do a lot about it. I think what you're doing is great.
Thank you.
I think we need to do it also at a national level. I think there's a lot of initiative to pull back from the federal oversight of curriculum planning, to get away from that indoctrination, which I think was a great idea. But I think universal school choice across the country is the step forward we need to take next.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent and a big advocate for letting the parents decide what's best for the kids. Not the state, not the government, not the school board. The parents, know what's best for your child. And if that means sending them to Timbuktu to go to school, you should have that. You should have that option. And unfortunately, here in the great state of Florida, our governor has done a great job over his 2 terms in implementing policies that's really opened up options for parents. And I think that's a great thing. And God willing, when you make it to D.C., hopefully you can be the champion and be the spark to keep that conversation going and maybe make some real changes on a federal level.
Thank you. Yeah, I absolutely hope we do get that. I mean, that's going to be something I will focus on with a lot of my time. Is it's going to be about education. Safety in our schools too is a big one, especially here in Broward. We've experienced a lack of safety, and affordability for Americans. It's something we need to keep on changing. There's been a lot of progress this year in the short period of time with a lot of tax reductions, but we need to keep going. It's something we need to fight every year in D.C., and I hope to get that opportunity to do so.
For sure, 100%. And, well, listen, I wish you the best of luck. moving forward. I appreciate the time on the show today.
Thank you. Well, tell us, how can people find you? How can they support you? You have an election coming up?
I do have an election coming up. I've got a couple opponents, so my first election will be in August. Hopefully we can get over the 51% threshold, Lord willing. But if not, we'll have to do it again in November. But I'm on every major social media platform. You can find me on Instagram at School Board Cervera. That's Cervera, and on Facebook and Twitter, it's at Adam Cervera on those social media platforms. Also, I'm going to be very bold. Right? I'm going to give my phone number, my personal cell phone number, to all of your listeners. You ready? I'm at 954-778-8405. If you have any issues, school-related issues that you want to talk with me about, you call me. I will pick up the phone. You can email me at the district. You can reach me on social. You can call me on the phone. You can send me a text message. People forget. Electeds often forget. We work for the people. Okay?
Yeah.
The residents of Broward County are my boss.
No, I've known you for a little while now, and I wholeheartedly believe everything you're saying. I believe what you're doing. I believe your phone's going to get a lot of calls, and so don't blame me later.
I'm ready, baby. I'm ready. That's what I'm here for.
All right. But thank you for coming to the show today. I really appreciate you, and you absolutely have my support this election coming up.
Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed today's show. It's available on replay, so click the like and subscribe button and forward it around to your friends. Let them get involved too. Remember, to really make your voice heard, you need to vote. Click the link below or scan the QR code to request a vote by mail ballot. Your vote can really make a difference. Thanks again, everyone.